All right, guys, let's look at numbers 14 and 15. I know I didn't assign them for the study guide, but we are going to actually just find the value of x for numbers 14 and 15. So let's look at this. This is very simple. You will see a question like this. The difference between number 14 and 15 and the last ones we did is that there's only one variable. Okay, so all you have to do is find the relationship between this angle here, 14x minus 25, and this angle that they give us, 129. So the relationship between these two is that they are alternate interior angles. Well, alternate interior angles are congruent, so we can set those equal to one another. 14x minus 25 equals 129. So now we can add 25 to both sides, gives us 14x equals 154. Divide both sides by 14, and now x should equal 11, okay? Number 15, let's look at that one. Same thing, we're gonna look at the relationship between both of these angles. Both of these angles are consecutive interior, so they will be supplementary. So instead of setting them equal to each other, we have to add them together to equal 180. So your first goal on these is to always identify the relationship and know if that relationship will be congruent or supplementary. So these are supplementary, we're gonna add them together. So 2x minus 8 plus 9x minus 10 equals 180. It forms a straight line. So let's combine like terms. 2x plus 9x is 11x. And then negative 8 minus 10 should be negative 18. So we're going to subtract 18 equals 180. Now we can add 18 to both sides. We can solve for x. So 198, divide both sides by 11, and x equals 18. Okay, now at the bottom of this page, it just gives you a section to recall all of the formulas that we discussed. So remember, when we're talking about a linear equation, which is just an equation that forms a straight line on a coordinate grid, we are using several different forms to identify that. And the first thing is going to be the slope that we look at. So remember, slope is labeled with an m. And then in order to find slope, we're looking at the difference between our y's and the difference between our x's, okay? Or rise over run if you're looking at a graph. Now the first form we talked about was our slope-intercept. Remember, it gives us our slope and it gives us our y-intercept, and that will be y equals mx plus b. Third form will be standard form, and you're gonna need to be able to convert between standard form and slope-intercept, and we'll look at a couple of practice problems for that. So our standard form is just a coefficient of a times x plus the coefficient b times y equals a constant c. So it's still in x, y order here instead of a y equals mx plus b. And the fourth and final form that we looked at was the point slope. That was the last thing we went over. Point slope is taking a point and the slope of a line and putting them together to identify what our slope intercept is. So let's go ahead and write that formula. It's going to be y minus y1, which is just the first y point, equals the slope times x minus x1. So we're going to look at all of that and how to convert between the two. So now let's look at the difference between the slopes of parallel lines here and the slopes of perpendicular lines. So first I want us to recall that this symbol looks like an 11, but it's two lines straight up and down identifies your parallel lines. So parallel just means that they never intersect and they belong on the same plane. So if we have two slopes of parallel lines, that means the slopes are the same. So they have the same slope, and that is going to be crucial to us figuring out some of the problems on the next page. And then the second part would be describe the slopes of perpendicular lines. So if we look at perpendicular lines, that means it's a symbol of an upside down T that represents an intersection where they form a right angle. So we'll notice they form a little right angle there. And those slopes will have a negative reciprocal. Negative reciprocal. Now remember, the negative reciprocal is just taking a fraction and flipping it and giving it the opposite sign. So for instance, if we had the fraction 2/3, The negative reciprocal of 2/3 will be taking this number, making it a negative, and then flipping the fraction. So it'd be negative 3/2. Let's look at another one. What if we had negative 4? So if we had negative 4, the negative reciprocal of negative 4 would be changing the sign, which would make it positive, and then we're going to flip the fraction. Now you have to remember, a whole number fraction is understood to be over 1. So in order to flip that, it'd be 1/4. So our negative reciprocal of negative 4 would be positive 1/4. Okay, this is the next page, and we will look at the next page in a moment.